unemployment and unemployability, both are problems that Nigeria, have today, and we must find a creative way to solve it. And I'm saying it is solvable.
It's solvable.
It is solvable, yes.
So how much of a contributing factor is the educational sector to this issue?
It's great. It's huge. It's huge because you see, when people are educated properly, they're enabled to target certain problems in society and solve them. And making money is a function of solving problems. So when people are properly educated, they are enabled to solve problems. And as they begin to solve problems in their societies, it's a barter. Business is a barter, right? I solve your problem and then you give me money. And so that's why people don't understand really the process of making money. That's why a lot of people are chasing money and they're not making money, right? There are a number of ways that you're able to make money consistently. One is that you give yourself the capacity to solve problems. Number two is that you're able to develop a product that you can exchange for money.
By giving yourself the capacity to solve problems,
what
do you mean?
By that I mean that, for example, somebody in Ghana has discovered a way to use both plastic and another material recycled from stuff thrown in the dirt bin to actually tar roads and make pavements and all of that. That's an invention. And so government of Ghana is looking into how to help that young man scale that technology because it's cheaper. So you can imagine that young man has discovered a solution to a problem, a cheaper solution to a problem. And so when he begins to get paid for that solution, what does he get? Profitability. He excels in his area of business. So people must be able to, in themselves, try to solve problems, okay? Nigerians are not doing that. Everybody wants to open a boutique. Everybody wants to open a fuel station. People are not being creative, and that's because our educational systems are not teaching people creativity. Now, when I traveled overseas 20 years ago, I first traveled to a country that spoke Portuguese. I didn't speak Portuguese, right? And so I couldn't get a job. But I needed to pay my rent because you had to pay on the 5th of every month. And it's not like in Nigeria. If you don't pay, you're out on the street. You have a contract, right? So that was when I actually discovered that saying, what that means. Necessity is the mother of invention. So because I knew I had to pay rent, I had bills to pay, and I couldn't get a job because I couldn't speak the language yet, I started thinking of ways to create things, and I started producing things that hadn't been done before. I started inventing things myself. And so these inventions caught the eyes of some people, and they started paying me money for that. And you see, I started making money, right? But that's because I have always been a creative person, curious person. I always want to make stuff with my hands, right? So people must be thought of, on how to create things. Look at problems in the society and ask yourself, how can I solve these problems? Begin to research, begin to look at what other people have done. And if you're able to come up with a solution, money follows you. That's number one. Number two, if you go to school, you learn mathematical equations. I said this last time I was here. You learn mathematical equations. You learn principles that every time you apply them, you arrive at a certain result that somebody in America arrived at. So you see the importance of education in solving problems and making wealth.
All right. Yes. Okay, that brings me to my next question. There seems to be an overemphasis on certificate.
Yes.
And what is generally acceptable around here is that you have to be certificated to stand a chance to be employed. What then happens to the artisans who, though they did not attend formal schooling, provide real value?
We have condemned them to poverty, and they too have given up. Because in the Nigerian system, we have said that only those who can do well, ever do well and amount to anything are people who have certificates. And so nobody cares about the artisan on the street, though he is an exceptional expert in his field. But you don't want to give him a job because he doesn't have a certificate. And Nigeria is failing because of that. There are a lot of artisans on the street who are great professionals, much better than the people who have acquired university degrees. And then we're not giving them a chance. And they too have given up. Some of them, have eventually died as a result of hunger or one kind of sickness or the other, or depression. Other ones have gone into criminality. The Nigerian government is to blame for that, because you also understand that people who hold HNDs are discriminated in the employment sector in Nigeria. People always prefer the BScs over the HNDs, let alone people who don't even have any certificate at all. But you see, It's because of something that happened in the probably generation of our fathers, where I said it before, where people get out of school and then there's a car waiting, and there's a house waiting, right? And so every Nigerian at that time perceived, my brother, if you actually get a degree, that ensures that you're going to live a good life. And so everybody wanted to get a degree, right? And so their generation actually did well, studied and became professionals, right? But the generations after that began to chase those certificates without actually acquiring the skills that make you a professional.
Okay.
And so that's why you find that this sex for marks has become absolutely prevalent in Nigerian universities. And young men and young girls are also joining cult groups and sorting out lecturers with money to get the certificate and not the skill. So you're going through university 4, 5, 6 years, depending on the course of study, okay? And what you have in your mind is the high CGPA and the certificate. I'm going to graduate and I'm going to do my NYSC and I'm going to have both certificates. But the problem is that people study to pass exams. So some people, what they do is exam period, they begin to cram to pass those exams. Some people pay other people to take these exams for them. Nobody wants to actually acquire the skills that make you an engineer that you're studying. Nobody wants to become a real professional, acquire the skills through the university. And so the function of university had become to acquire certificates because that's what's going to change my life. And that's why we churn out millions of graduates who know next to nothing. And they come out roaming the streets looking for jobs. There are two problems with that. Number one is that there are no jobs to be given anywhere. The jobs are not available. So we must rethink this idea of going to school to get certificates. Number two, if you get a job opportunity, you have to go through an interview. Are you going to be able to convince the guy going to give you the job that you know the job? Because you don't know it, right? And so you ask them, the job, just give me the job. What are you going to do for me? Are you going to make me profit? And I say that if you go to countries like Germany, where I've done business, you see, it's a skill-based, a lot of European countries are skill-based economies. They don't care about your certificate. Those are good, right? But the employer is looking for profitability and productivity.